welcome back to Hot Flashes and Cool Topics, everybody. Today we have on Twila True. And in our series of Women in Business, Twila is definitely an expert in several businesses, and we are absolutely thrilled to have her on the show. Welcome, Twila.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So nice to be with you guys.
Well,
we're glad you're here. Yeah.
Yes, we appreciate you. Are very busy. Besides being an entrepreneur, you're also an investor, you're a philanthropist. So you're wearing many hats. But I think where we kind of wanted to start was, at the beginning. You were born and please forgive me if I say it wrong, the Oglala Lakota Sioux tribe. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, no, you've got it. So Lakota is a tribe, and then they're set up into different, there's different tribes within that tribe, and one of them is the Oglala. And not sure exactly where I was born, but I am a member of the tribe.
That's amazing. And it was not a wealthy area that you grew up in. You don't recall all of it, correct? Because you were adopted out at a pretty young age.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So, Pine Ridge is ground zero for the Oglala Sioux tribe. That's where they sit, southwest corner of South Dakota. It's the poorest place in the nation. So, like a 90% high school dropout rate, 80% employment rate. It's a tough spot, right? They have the highest infant mortality rate, not in the US, but in the Western Hemisphere. But all of that to say that, what's incredible about them, about us, is they're the most culture rich people that you will ever meet. Cup is half full, not half empty. And it's not about what's been wonderful. It's not about the monetary sort of social currency that can kind of be placed on us. It's about tradition and family and longer range of life. So they're very rich in that.
So you were in this type of life, and then you're such a success now, and it's so amazing. I know so many people even maybe start out with more privilege or something, than you did, but look what you've done with it. And I know that our listeners are probably just dying to know, how did you do this? How did this come about?
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If I look at my beginning years, and sort of, it was really a mental state that I was fortunately able to be in. And that mental state was, for all the things that I mentioned we didn't have, that's not really what I focused on. I focused on really what I had and what I believed I could do. And, my belief of what I can do and what I always could do, that never wavered. And so if I go back to a very young age, the Lakota Sioux tribe, my grandmother, a traditional Lakota woman, and very strong, very proud. And again, it wasn't what we didn't have, but what we could give the world. And we just had to get to that spot so that way we could give the world. Then I was adopted by a man who happens to be of Hispanic Mexican descent. And he didn't adopt me because he was my natural father. He adopted me because I needed a dad, and he was a great person. And so he also taught me what he taught me in the relationship when you have a really good man in your life. I think, especially at a young age, he was a mechanic. So we lived also, very modest means, one TV in the house. My mother was at home, and he did his mechanic job and came home. But there again, right, we had good rules, we had good foundation, we were fed, we were clean, and he really taught me the value as a woman. So although we didn't really have anything, he opened the door to our beat up Chevrolet. He cursed sailor because he was a Vietnam vet, except for when I walked in the room. And when I walked in the room, every man better stand up and, stop their cursing. the gift of, what a female could do intellectually. And I mean, he created that for me, right? So I think that when you're fortunate enough to know that these mental barriers are sometimes just that, mental barriers, and when you're walking in proud and, sometimes that confidence is then fed. I didn't really, I didn't have the opportunity to feed negativity. I only had the opportunity to feed my own courage and confidence.
Well, I'm excited to talk about the knowledge and wisdom that you have gained now as a midlife woman with businesses totaling over $1 billion. We're going to get there, definitely. But what I would really like to know is, a young woman starting out, what was your first job? What direction did you want to go?
Mhm. So my very first job was, my father actually didn't want me to work, and I wanted to work because I just really enjoyed I had a curiosity. I wanted to have my own finances, because when parents give you an allowance and this is what you can spend it on. And I understood, well, if I had my own allowance, then I could buy that hairspray I wanted, or, so my very first job was actually at a hot dog stand at the Arcadia Mall at the age of 16. And I find that all jobs or all positions, it just kind of depends on what it is, learning what the business is, and then what your means to be there is. For me, it was always understanding, oh, this is a business. What are they trying to do here? They're selling a product and they're trying to monetize their product. So, that's what kind of feeds everything. So every job I went into, it was really mapping it out. So, I worked at a hot dog stand, and I put the dogs in the bun and gave them their orange drink. But I could quickly see, oh, it starts out here, and then there's a manager, and how many of these are there? And oh, there's multiple of them. And that was my first understanding of, it's a franchise. And so I think I never clocked in, because life is not a clock in. If you've got an end goal and my end goal always was, I wanted to be self-reliant. I understood that there was bad things out there. I'd seen it, I'd witnessed it. It was in my life, in my family, and I also saw that nobody was going to come, to help me and save me. I had family that depended on the government, and I understood what that does for you. I had friends and family that were uninsured. I had girlfriends that married for their financial security, and I just thought, none of those options are what I want. What I want to do is, it's not because I want to be great or I want to be famous or I just wanted to be able to live a life that I could sustain myself, and take care of myself without a man. And if I could do that, then I could help my family. I could help myself. And so the hot dog stand was my very first job. My second job was working a night shift at UPS. And then after that, I went to night school. I understood that, okay, I can figure out business, but I need to take accounting classes because I want to understand an income statement and a balance sheet.
I mean, I do too. I haven't taken an accounting class. Yeah. Yes, but that is very smart. So not just to take the class for the experience, not even to worry about the degree. I tell my children that have degrees in certain fields, and they want to know more about coding. And I'm like, well, take a coding class, take some coding classes. Yeah.
So I didn't have the opportunity. A degree was not going to be in my cards, because I had to work I had to gain work experience. And then I coupled that with night school. And in my work experience, that's what sort of paid my bills in my early teens. Look, it worked for me because I was so hungry for it, and I just took classes in what applied to what I wanted, which was to understand business.
I was just going to say, I know I worked at McDonald's. That was one of my first jobs, was working at McDonald's in high school. And, you're someone young like that. And I remember being so excited. What do you say to women or people that experience they're in there and they're so excited, then they might get around coworkers that are negative. And I remember that would happen and that would bring me down. Is there any advice you could say about trying to get away from that negativity that brings you down?
Sure. I would say, gosh, it's not only in your work life, it's, from friends to family to work to, everybody's going to everybody's going to see life differently. And everybody's going to see, what their goals are, or how what's important to them differently. I just never got off base. I appreciate everybody for where they're at, so it was never an argument for me, or never an I'm right or you're right. I mean, whatever is for you, that's really what's right. If whatever way of life or however you think of life, but in the return, all I asked is that I wanted to be around people that also respected what I thought and the way I wanted to go about it. And if I found people that, at least I respect their way of thinking and they respect my way of thinking, then fantastic. And I never lost my point. If I found people that didn't respect it, then that's where I filtered, or I started to, make sure that I just filtered and make sure I was more around those that we could have mutual respect.
So where would you say was your first big break, so to speak?
My first big break was really working in I'm today a family office, was working in a small family office. It was a husband and wife team. There were peak seasons. They created Christmas items, and they were a very small company. I was going to night school. And what I discovered working for a small company is that if I worked my back end off, and because that's what was important to me, if I just really worked hard, I was recognized for that, especially in a small business. Whether you have a small business of 5, or it's a small business or a bigger business of 500 or 5,000, it's all the same. It's a business. Usually there's a product line. There's a way to monetize. It's just the numbers are how the revenues are different and how many people are in the business are different, but it's all the same. So I got in there and I discovered that if I get in and understand different verticals, you have the opportunity to do different things. If it's a small business, you get in and you can work in operations, even if operations means answering the phone and writing down the sales order and getting it back to the warehouse, that's still operations. If it's sales, and sales is taking the orders and ending in and talking to people and getting it into the system, it's HR. Where's the time clock, and where's the it's you start to hit all of these little buckets, these verticals that are in every business, and then you just go bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh, I mean, that is amazing. Now, so what was after you were with that small business, and I also know you went overseas for a while, that you were in Asia how long were you in Asia for? Like
12 years.
Okay, for like 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you start to do your first business? When did that happen and how did that come about?
Yeah, so really my first business was, I got my next big break was working for a company that made computer circuit boards, about 300 people. That was in Laverne, California. I had already worked every position, and then the GM position came up. And because I'd already worked every position, I was well versed. I could talk accounting, I could talk sales, I could talk, operations. So at 27, I became GM of that company, and it was ran by a private investor. And my job was to, turn that company around. And so, again, that's where something small became something big. Then I started doing consumer goods, and started creating brands. So that's kind of how all of that, sort of happened. I'll tell you the biggest thing as a female that happens and that we have to adjust to is, as I'm running this path, maybe there's John and Bill that I know, and I'm making up names. And we're all on the same path. You're working, you're going to school, you're getting promoted, you're learning all these jobs. But then what happens as a female is you have a tap out period. And that tap out period is you also you'd like to get married, you'd like to have children, and nobody else can do that but you, right? You're the one that has to carry. And what's hard is you have this tap out period where you got to tap out. And all your fellow coworkers and colleagues, and this isn't good or bad, I'm just telling you the story of my life, right? And how I saw it unfold, is that Bob and Bill over here, they get to keep going. So they get to keep going because they don't have to bear the child. And so then I had my tap out period where between 29 and 34, I had my 3 children. And then you got to come back into the race, and you're not this Bob and Bill, never tapped out. And so you're trying to re-entering the workforce is another great challenge for females.
Yeah, it sure is. And what do you do about that? Because we were all told you can have it all. I know we're all about the same age, and you can have it all. This, and you're trying, and then your emotions come into play because you want to, work with this career that you've invested your time in, but you love your child. If you choose to have a child, you love your child. I mean, that whole, I know Colleen, I know what Colleen's story is around that. And
I was an attorney and I was supposed to go back and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's fair. I was a teacher and I didn't go back for a little bit, but I went back. But then I lost those years of service, because teaching, it's all about years of service and your degree. So I lost 3-4 years of service that could go toward my retirement whenever that would happen. And so it is tough. And what can you do? What advice would you have for someone when they're coming back after tap out time?
I guess the best advice is to know it's hard. Sometimes I'd love to sugarcoat it. And it sounds like you guys have had the same experience. I think sometimes it's just someone telling you as a fellow woman is to at least know it's hard, but you at least knowing that it's hard and that you're going to kind of have to come in, and it's going to be harder for you, and you're going to have to burn, more time. You're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to fight harder. You can do it, but at least just know that and embrace it, because there's nothing you can do about it, because until we can outsource, our capabilities but I guess you can, but I didn't want to.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted that experience, right? You want that also. So, but you have to come in and you have to see where the chips are, and you have to, either decide, okay, I'm going to continue down this path, or I'm going to take my time and my experience, and I can take that and I can apply it to many other paths. Because here's the one thing that I've discovered, maybe John and Bob have that opportunity and over us because we have tap out time. But what I found today is that we have a superpower as women in business. And that superpower is that the good and bad. The good and bad is you walk into a boardroom and a male can walk in and he gains currency, and he gains currency in that boardroom. And I use boardroom broadly as just an example of life. He walks in that boardroom and he gains currency by cursing, off-color jokes, doing just all of and he's cool and he gains currency for that. Try that as a woman.
Yeah. You'll be out the door. You'll be reprimanded. Yeah.
Yeah,
You'll be out the
it's
door.
not going to work, right? What you wear, how you dress, how you conduct yourself, how you speak, what you speak about. You walk into the room and we are just hoping to hold our currency. We're just hoping to keep our currency and not diminish that, because you can't tell the off-color jokes. You can't wear a red skirt. You can't have your button too low, or you lose currency. So I understood that at an early age, and I'm okay with it because I don't want to be judged on those things either. I want to be judged on what I know. So I walk into the room, I've studied it, I understand it, I can contribute to the topic of whatever it is that we're talking about. I didn't need a red skirt. I didn't need a lowered button. I can on my own merit and professional contribution is there for. Now I'm feminine. I love my femininity. I embrace my femininity. I'm a mother, and what then I figured out what my where my gain is, and what my gain is that for the most part, being of the gender that we're at, we really are nurturers. We really do enjoy, it seems like our whole lives, we're peacemakers, we're nurturers, where we love honesty, we communicate, much differently. Those are our superpowers. And if we know our superpowers, kind of sitting at that table, people want to respect and hold in higher regard the matriarch. And that's
True.
kind of our superpower.
It is. And it's great to look at it that way, because I get frustrated when I feel like that I'm not, if I feel like I'm being talked over by males. It's funny, females don't tend, or I find just in my situation, they don't tend to do that. Like if Colleen and I were talking, we both have a question, I'm like, oh, you go on. Okay, I'll ask the next question. But sometimes, and it's not every male, but you feel like, are they just talking over me? What they call mansplaining. And it seems amazing, what you just said as being the nurturer and how you do that. I really admire you that you have been able to do that, to handle that. How do I'm sure it's happened to you. How do you handle that situation when you might be mansplained?
It happens to me. It wants to start happening to me quite a bit, right? It's because as soon as you walk in, it's that measurement, right? It's a measurement of who and what, and everybody's sort of currency. But I don't play at that game, right? So walking in, and again, I think it comes from, I know my worth, I know my currency, and I don't participate in sort of those sort of battles, because I'm above all of that. And so when I have something to say, it's very contributive. I come at it at a certain way. And when somebody wants to have those sort of, word battles, or play battles of trying to create hierarchies or anything like that, I think I've just positioned myself very well, that people understand that I don't play at those levels.
I think it's important also, especially for midlife women. You've said before that life is a pivot. And I think another one of our superpowers is that I think women tend to pivot easier than men
Yes.
do in a lot of ways. As we get older, I think sometimes it becomes challenging for women to even imagine pivoting. They want to do a career change. They want to pivot to something else. And they find that maybe they're the only woman in the boardroom, as you were saying before, or they're starting out something new. Do you have advice for them on how to pivot?
I think two things, which is One is to remember that we're lifetime learners and don't lose that, right? You only tap yourself out if you've tapped yourself out. I, I think I'm going to be 54 this year, and I am 4 years young. I mean, I just started. If you look at the life cycle of women, right? We live the longest. I'm barely hitting my second half. And, I look good, I feel good. I love my age. I don't, please don't take me back to 20.
Right. We say that all the time. We're like, I don't want to be younger. Yeah. Yeah.
I love my age. I'm right, right at reaching. I haven't even peaked yet. So I think that going in with that attitude, and then again, remembering that I'm a lifetime learner, every day I want to learn something that I didn't. I appreciate learning, and I'm open to learning. I'm very open to knowing that there's so much out there. Please, world, teach me and absorb it, and let me be a lifetime learner. We were talking a second ago about, how we work with, if people want to talk over you or things like that. I think that, you just need more female examples. And your guys' show is a wonderful example of that, right? Because unfortunately, what happened is you usually just didn't have a lot of people to emulate. Most of our mothers worked at home. If you did go to the toy store, it was irons and ironing boards or cooking utensils. Women aren't really in the sciences, or we don't do sales because we're more timid about talking, because we're not used to that, conversation point, because we have male role models, and they role modeled that. But your female role model really didn't teach you how to enter a conversation, how to exit a conversation, how to not be too emotional or too strong, how to get your point across strongly, but, just how to maneuver that. So that way you can hold your position. And I love shows like this because, what you want to do is you want to share with your fellow sisters in the world. And be examples and say, I don't know the answers to everything, but I can share my experience with you.
Right. Absolutely. And that's invaluable for women when they can see someone who has done it before. You have, I think 50 companies in your brand underneath, and they range from food to entertainment to beautiful, let me just say beautiful jewelry. Just throwing that out there. And do you find that the business plan is similar for each? It doesn't really matter if it's a food, the service or product. Do you find that the business model works across the board?
I do. It mostly works across the board because at the end of the day, it's a different widget. What's the widget? We got to make the widget. We got to sell the widget. What's the widget? How do you sell the widget? And at the end of it, you're just trying to make a profit off of that widget. All things kind of work off of that. What I also find is, as females, is not only was it the conversation and conversing that we lagged behind because of experience or mentors, but also just talking about business. In most households, when I was growing up, you talked about the males and the sons talked about business, but the daughters were learning how to use baking powder and a rolling pin, right? So it just wasn't. It's not that we can't. It's just that there was a leap. They had a head start in words, and that's all it is words. Every single vertical, I learned not to be scared, because when you come in and you already have a deficit, you're already intimidated in your mind because it sounds so hard. And, so-and-so over there can have this conversation, and it just can lower your confidence, make it more intimidating. Until it's broken down that in every single industry, there's probably 5 or 10 acronyms. That's it. And the secret's out, and it's no big mystery. it's not as scary as we think it is.
That's amazing. And, you know, not only do you do businesses for profit, but you also do a lot of nonprofit work as well. And how did that come into play when, you know, and it seems like what you do, it's so important. The True Sue Hope Foundation, the True Children's Home, and the housing, the real estate one that you do for the housing.
Mhm.
It's really passionate. How did that come about?
There's a few of our own charities and outside charities that I support. To be honest, the way it comes about is I just always feel like for me, if I become not humble or only think of myself, it kind of just changes the energy of everything. It changes the energy of my business. It changes the energy of how I operate, how I think of things. Holding on to your humility and never losing that ability to know that I got here because a few people helped me along the way. If I continue to do that, the energy around everything that I do and my attitude and the way I approach things, it works out for me. The minute that I think anything special about myself, Mother Nature will give me a tap on the head and say, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take it down a few notches,
Take
right?
it- take it down.
Sure. Uh-huh.
Calm down and
Yes.
let's go back to helping others and let's stay in check here. You are no better than anyone else, and let's help other people, and then maybe other people will continue to help you.
One of the things I would love to talk about is the 1500 Sound Academy that you just started kind of getting involved in with two of the entertainment industry's professionals. How did that come about?
So I had met, as an investment firm, you meet a lot of people who want to participate in business with you. I had never thought I'd be in entertainment. I met these two guys, James Fauntleroy and Rance Dobson, and they're just two other good humans. And so no matter what the business or no matter what it is that you're doing, I think that it always starts out with other good humans. So they're very good humans. They're biggest, again, songwriters and music producers. We had the same energy and thought, wow, if we combine forces, we all can champion different things, and there's some really fun things we can do together. So I partnered with them, built the platform, and now we have our first studios opening up in about 3 or 4 months, called Volume in Inglewood. Second studio is opening up in Resort World in Vegas. I just partnered with one of the largest private equity firms, and we'll be opening up about 12 more of these in Asia over the next 2 or 3 years.
Amazing.
That is amazing. Wow.
And that's why I say it's so interesting, because your investments run the gamut. So it's really about, there must be something that connects you when someone's pitching to you. That you're like, do you just feel like you have this inner voice that said, I'm going to go this way, not that way?
I know some things and I know what I don't know. So let's say I'll do a lot and partner. And if it's in entertainment or consumer goods, those are sort of my bailiwick. You'll never really catch me. And I say this, I'll knock on wood now and then watch me do something I shouldn't do. But, we've also all had things that didn't work. And I think knowing that, right? And knowing that you've got to bat all the time. And every time you bat, it's about picking up the bat again and knowing, okay, the last time I batted, here's what worked or didn't work. I know these areas, I know them cold, and I went deep in these areas. Talk about oil and gas, forget about it. I am not going to impress you because I do not know certain verticals, but the verticals I know them cold.
And I like that too, that how you use that analogy. But we always say, I always feel like when you're at this age and you try something and it doesn't work out, I don't really like to call that a failure. I like to call it just, I tried it and it didn't really work. So I might want to try something else
Yeah.
and it might work, not work. But
Mhm.
I do, wow, that is really cool.
So now that you're kind of at that peak of really just hitting your stride, can you see yourself slowing down in the next couple of years? Or do you just like what's on to the next thing that you would like to do?
I always think about slowing down. I always think about, other things I'd like to do. I've had those opportunities, and what happens is I like what I do. And then when I have an opportunity to do nothing, I honestly you get complacent, and I enjoy what I do. I enjoy building. I enjoy the journey of building. I enjoy people and partnerships. It doesn't mean I like to relax, once in a while, but do nothing is not, if you have the opportunity to do nothing, what can happen is you just, you still need a purpose in life. Yeah. And I really enjoy the purpose of it. And every time I even think of stopping anyway, something else happens, and I can't not do it. I also, in this phase of my life, I'm very thankful that I have 4 kids, and my husband's busy. I'm busy. And when we sit at the dinner table, I think what it's added to me as a woman is I'm able to, have a family and have my marriage, and that relationship, and be contributive to that relationship. I'm able to have my relationship with my children and be a mother and be contributing there. But I never lost myself. And I can sit at the dinner table, and I'm not living through anybody. I'm not living through my husband. I'm not living through my kids. I have stories and things that I'm doing, and I'm interesting, and we participate in each other's thing too. And I'm super thankful that at this time in my life, I've gently ended up there.
I think that's a fantastic message for women. And it's just, you're at this position and it's great, but you've also, what's important to you, and that how your family and your children and your husband are so important to you. So I think that's a great message to our listeners.
If you had a piece of advice that you could leave our midlife listeners with for, whether they're starting a new business or they're changing careers or they're just not satisfied with the way their career is going right now, what would be a piece of advice that you could give them?
I think the piece of advice would be not to the definition of where we're at starts with ourselves. So as I said, for me, I approach every single day as I'm just getting going, and I'm a lifetime learner, and I welcome every experience, and I approach them with enthusiasm and and appreciation. So I think that approaching it like that is the biggest piece of advice that I can share and say, gosh, if we're in midlife, we're in top stride, because I plan on living a long time. I'm, like I said, I'm just getting started.
Yes. Yeah, I was just going to say, I really wanted to know if you could just share with our listeners where to find you on just online, and where to find some of your nonprofits and your businesses.
Mhm. I think that Instagram's great. It's Twila_True. And then I think we have twilatrue.com, twilatrueenterprises.com. And I'm just very thankful to be, full as I can. And us women have to help those in front of us, those behind us, those around us. And we always have, and always will.
Well, we want to thank you so much for coming on and just sharing so much wisdom and knowledge for our listeners and other, our midlife women in business and careers, because we really learn from each other and all of our experiences. So thank you, Twila, so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.